Good morning and welcome to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I am here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. and my office is located at 1563 Main Street in Peckville. And if you're looking for landowner information, well, this is the show for you. At the Clark Law Firm, I focus solely on landowner representation, oil and gas leases, oil and gas lease modifications and amendments. Been having some more of those. Oil and gas leases as well. Just real quick, I touched on this the other day. I have a client now who has the highest financial compensation offer for an oil and gas lease, the highest per acre financial compensation offer that I have ever had for any client since I've ever started doing this. And, hundreds upon hundreds of leases. It is the highest per acre bonus offer that I have ever had for any client. So, they're out there. Now, look, you have to understand your circumstance, your situation. This person's property is in the southwestern part of the state, but it's important to know, we hear these gas prices and and it's a factor. And I've talked about this many times, but at the same time, companies know that these prices will change. In certain areas, we're seeing these offers, again, the highest financial compensation on the per acre basis of any client that I have ever represented. And frankly, anyone that I can ever recall reviewing that I wasn't involved in. So, let's just say, we've seen 6,000, over 6,000 times and times again. However, again, this is the highest. I can't get into details in the amount, but the highest, and quite frankly, considerably higher than any other offer that I have ever seen to any landowner on a per acre basis. So to give you an idea, there's still things out there happening. So, it hurts me. I see these offers at, like $500 and $1,000 per acre. And it's a very good chance that that's all you may be able to obtain. And you may want to go ahead and move forward. But you have to look at your circumstance. You have to look what is happening on the ground. What is happening around me? Who is leased? Who isn't leased? There's things that you need to look at. Because also just deciding, do I want to move forward? And I'll tell you this, if you're considering a lease at 12.5%, 13.5% with deductions, I would be very careful. I would make sure that I'm looking at everything, I'm getting good advice, and I'm making a decision that's going to be informed for me. Because what we're seeing is, we're seeing some bad offers out there. My opinion, I stress my opinion, people may disagree, but seeing bad offers, 10-year offers for the state's minimum royalty, 10-year contracts that you're entering into with companies that aren't even producing now or producing very little, I would be very hesitant. But again, that's not specific advice for any single person, but just saying, when you're going to go sign pen to paper on these leases, you need to be careful because there's a really good chance you're not going to get another opportunity. In most cases, you're not going to get another opportunity. So, I'm reading articles. I'm seeing all this information about Utica and Utica development. That's great. That's great. But, how does it work where a company says, hey, we're smashing it with these Utica wells. We're getting outstanding results. This is going to be great. We're all going to make a lot of money. This is going to be wonderful. But then your offer is 12.5%. Or, hey, we're having a fire sale, Black Friday on leases. We'll give you 13.5%. Maybe if you act quickly, we'll give you 14%. I mean, literally, we're starting to do, it's like Black Friday for gas leases, except the savings, if you will, are not very substantial. They're not these, I wouldn't be waiting out at midnight at Best Buy or waiting at midnight in front of the landman's house or the local offices with my lease in hand, getting ready to submit it. Again, I stress, it's not advice for any specific person. The advice for everybody is get this reviewed, have a consultation with somebody who knows the market, somebody who understands what's going on to decide if this is what you want to do. And that's the same thing, with any contract that you're ever going to do. Any time that you're going to put pen to paper, These are industrial contracts. Anytime you're going to do that, you really should have bare bones minimum a consultation, a review of the document with a knowledgeable attorney. And this isn't whether it's me or not. It's not trying to be an advertisement. You need to do this because people sign bad agreements. I'll give you a couple of war stories examples. Both of these in the last 2 weeks. Number one, landman goes out to the client. Well, actually, I represent the client a couple years ago. This is about 3 years ago or so. We do some pipeline agreements. Client very pleased. We are very happy with the agreements. We enter into the agreements. About a year later or so, landman goes out to the landowner client, says, "Oh, hey, we want to put this a surface facility on your property. We want to put a surface facility there. And I'll tell you what, you don't need to. We'll give you the same type of language that we gave you last time. And you know what? We're going to put another pipeline to this surface facility. And so you won't need to go see an attorney or anything. We'll give you that same type of language." Okay, so all right, that sounds good. And landowner says, "All right, well, that makes sense. I'm not dying to spend money that I don't need to spend. So okay, let's go ahead and give me the paperwork. We'll give you the same financial terms and conditions that we gave you a year or two ago." All right, again, hey, makes sense. What do we need to do? So they go ahead and sign. Well, lo and behold, now there's something that comes up that they need. They come and they contact me and say, "Hey, we have an issue or we have a question." Well, one of the issues that they have now is also with the documents they signed, it authorized the roadway. The roadway that they were told would be very small, that would go once or twice a year by using ATV vehicles, and will go to our surface site. No big deal. Okay, sounds good. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. So we're talking about a situation where landowner goes ahead and they sign these other agreements and believe the company is saying, "Okay, hey, yeah, you don't need to have this reviewed. We'll essentially give you the same things as before, same money, everything." Well, there's many problems. Here's some. Number one, this particular negotiation we would have had for this surface site, the future surface site that they were approached the second time, and the roadway and the pipeline agreement, we would have had additional leverage and ability to negotiate. I have no doubt in the world in my mind that we could have got significantly more compensation if the landowner was going to agree to enter into the agreement. Significantly more. Well, of course, the landman doesn't tell that to the company. Why? Or to the landowner. I jumped myself here. The landman doesn't say that to the landowner. Why? Hopefully I have a chorus of people out there listening saying, because the landman works for the company, not for you, the landowner. So landman says, "Oh yeah, hey, great, we're here. We're going to do you all these favors. You don't need to see an attorney. Here, sign this, sign this, sign this. We'll give you the same type of thing." Well, the pipeline document was essentially identical, including identical compensation for a line that they didn't have the rights to do under the gas lease, that we could have really negotiated and probably got significantly more compensation, but I have no doubt more compensation. So probably cost these people, in this case, tens of thousands of dollars or more just in the pipeline agreement alone, just because they believed in the landman. Then the roadway that was promised to be a trail, essentially, is how they told me it was described, where it would be accessed once to twice a year by like ATVs to go check on this facility. Well, now they have this mammoth roadway. I've seen pictures. They said the people are on that road virtually every single day, and the surface site, the agreement they gave him for the surface site, the agreement we did before was a pipeline agreement. So what happens there is the company just throws in some of these addendum terms from the pipeline agreement that have little impact or have little value for the landowner, and excludes information or terms that would be very valuable for the landowner. And one thing is, the surface site had no restriction of size, no size restriction. So you're told as a landowner, "Oh, we're just going to do this. We're going to have this small road once or twice a year, and we're going to have this surface site, and it's going to be, we'll just have they described it was going to be a valve and maybe like a steering wheel type thing above ground. So a trail and an ATV and a valve or something small above ground." Well, Fast forward, now they're sending me pictures, they're giving me all this information and saying, and we already found out, these problems before. Well, now, to make matters worse, they're significantly increasing the size of the surface site, which was already large and much bigger than what the landowner ever thought. Now it's about doubling in size. It's mammoth, and they're so upset. They look from their kitchen window or the living room. I gotta say, I'm not sure which window it is, but the pictures show the house, and the house overlooks this site. And the site is mammoth, and there's all this construction going on. The roadway is huge. They are so disappointed and upset. And the problem is that when the landman came, made these representations, the landowner believed these representations, and hey, look, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say, well, that's what maybe they thought at the time. That's a big benefit of the doubt. Very, very big. Very, very big. But let's say that's what they thought at the time. The company thought, we're only going to put this little roadway here. We're going to only put this little valve here. Well, you know what? As a landowner and as a lawyer for the landowner, if that's what you want to do, company, and the landowner wants to do it, great. Let's reach an agreement. Well, that agreement is going to limit what the company can do. We will give you the rights to do what you want to do. So we're going to limit the size of this area. Do you need a 50 by 50 foot area? Do you need a 75 by 75 foot area? What do you need? And let's document it. So we don't run into this situation where years into the future, it's doubling in size. And who knows? Because there's no limitation that was built into the agreement that the landman gave the landowner and acted like their buddy and say, oh yeah, here you go. This is really good. You don't need an attorney. We got you all hooked up here. Again, for lower value than I'm sure, well, I'll say confidently, I believe that I could negotiate at higher money. But then also now an agreement that allows them to keep adding on and adding on. And these people are distraught. They're distraught, and I feel bad. And the problem is that people tend to be trusting. And I'm a trusting person, very, very much so. But these are adversarial negotiations. Adversarial meaning not you got to stand up and fight these people, but adversarial in that you have a goal and they have a goal. Your goals are different. You have to understand the psychology of this word partnership. I swear I've heard it 6-7 times this week in talking to companies. Partnership. Well, yeah, they want you to think it's a partnership to get you to sign. I mean, I don't have very many clients, very many at all, who say, boy, I think this has been a wonderful partnership. We don't see that. It sounds great. It sounds great to get you to sign pieces of paper. They say it. It's like, it's a mantra. You hear it nonstop. But the reality is the partnership only goes as far as they're willing to do things and be a partner. The company's willing to be a partner to you to the extent that they're comfortable and it's things they don't care about. But as soon as you say, hey, you told me there was going to be a small road. Well, read the document, read what you signed. Well, you told me you were going to have a valve there. Well, read what you signed. We can put whatever we want there. So that partnership doesn't seem like such a partnership anymore. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I'm going to be right back after this break here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. on these stations. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Again, I represent landowners, only landowners, and oil and gas right owners in all oil and gas related matters, gas lease negotiations, pipeline agreements, all kinds of it. Negotiated pipeline agreements now with over 50 different companies across the state of Pennsylvania. Just was down in Princeton, New Jersey, negotiating with Williams representatives on Atlantic Sunrise, clients of mine. Very productive meeting, I believe, and we made a lot of strides. So do a lot with interstate pipelines all across the state, too. Never worry about distance. If you think you're interested in representation, you're interested to find out what we do, how we do things, give us a call, 570-307-0702. That's 570-307-0702. 0702. Regardless of where you are, I was talking earlier, have the highest lease offer that I've ever had for any client, and doing literally, I've done hundreds of leases, this being in the southwestern part of the state, and everything is going great. Things are going great, and this happens all the time. I have all kinds of clients in the southern or the southwestern part of the state over the years, and the western part of the state, clients that live in Alaska or prior clients. No, I don't have any active clients in Alaska right now, but I've had clients in Alaska, Texas, California, Micronesia, London. So again, all across the country, and even, world to some degree. So distance is very rarely, if ever, been an obstacle. So you can always feel free, call us, see if we're right for you, 570-307-0702. Also, check out pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com, whether you're looking for representation or you're looking to learn. You want to get some good information. Go check us out. pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. I've been doing the radio show, All Things Marcellus, since August of 2010. So now we're getting well beyond, we'll just say beyond 5 years of doing the show. So that, there's a lot of subjects there. You can go back. We've started now. We don't go all the way back with the radio shows because some of the information, the market's changing. So I don't want people listening to radio shows that are too old, that may be stale for what we're dealing with now, because the markets have changed. And that's an important thing too. I've talked about this often, and I can't talk about it enough, that when you're going online or you're reading information or you're getting information, you have to have good quality, credible, current information, relevant for today, relevant to your situation. You could go out there and you can read and you can be trying to hold out for a certain provision that you've read is so important, whether it be a pipeline, whether it be a gas lease, whatever the case may be, or whether it be a roadway agreement, whether it be a compressor agreement, whatever it may be, but that information may be stale and you're not going to get it. And you need to understand that, this term, what people thought or what you thought was important, or that people thought, hey, you should really fight for, and then many times maybe you should have. Well, today's market is different. So realistically, is that going to be the stumbling block that maybe kills the deal? Well, you have to understand today's market. So be careful, please. Please be careful. You're getting good information that's relevant for you today. Say it all the time. You need information for you. You, not your neighbor, not your friend, not the guy at church or the guy at the diner or the guy at the gas station. You need that information for you. And the market is changing all the time, and you need to know, okay, what can I do? What are my options? We got to learn from prior mistakes. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with Attorney Doug Clark. I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. And again, at pagasleaseattorney.com and pipelineattorney.com, you can go and listen to today's show. We'll post it up tomorrow, Monday. We'll post it up, and then also you can go back and listen to a bunch of other prior shows. So, just to finish up, I was telling kind of a story. And, look, I could sit here and tell story after story after story of people being taken advantage of, in my opinion. And I think that any neutral person would probably look at the same way. I know certainly that the landowner feels that they were taken advantage of. But again, at some point on our side, on the landowner's side, we got to take responsibility to say, hey, look, there's a base of information that's out there that we can learn from, that we've seen people be taken advantage of, and we have to stop it. We can't continue to make these mistakes. And I've said, sometimes people say, well, geez, I don't want to hire an attorney. It's going to cost money. Well, in virtually every single case, virtually every case, it's going to be, as long as you have a good attorney, it's going to be money well spent. And many times that money, there's times where the money increases hundreds of thousands of dollars or more. But again, it's all about your situation. So if you're afraid of that, get a consultation, get a review, do this initial consultation and review and become more educated and get this baseline information and say, hey, do I want to go further? Do I need some more help? Does this seem like I need more information, or am I comfortable with what I have? Do I not want to do this? Whatever the case may be. So, this is something that I've tried, because I want to get this information out there, that we're doing some more of those like consultations and reviews, and they've been working really well. You can contact the office, learn more, 570-307-0702. Sorry to get commercial, but it's just true. It's true. Whether it's a lease, a pipeline, whatever the case may be, you're only hearing one side when the landman comes to the company or comes to your door. And I'm getting excited. I keep jumping myself here. But why are you only hearing one side? Because the landman works for the company. Here's another thing. I've been meeting with a lot of clients recently, reviewing the proposed class action settlement, going over with all these different clients. We're going over royalty checks. I look at royalty checks all the time. And one of the things, that other people have said, and somebody said this week, they're like, we were promised so much. We were promised so much, and we were promised all this money, and we were promised all these great things, and now we're getting royalty checks that are so small. Well, there's not a lot of production. The gas prices are really low, and these promises aren't coming true in almost all cases. So think about that. When the landman's sitting at your door, think about that they've been sitting at a lot of doors for many, many years. And a lot of people are very disappointed. And a lot of people who are promised a lot of things haven't seen those promises come through, haven't seen all of these royalties and all of these benefits. So you need to get some other perspective. It's so important. And I truly, truly believe it. Again, I'm Attorney Doug Clark. You're listening to All Things Marcellus here every Sunday from 8 to 9 on these stations. You can go back to pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com, and listen to prior radio shows anytime at your leisure. All right, so just wrapping that up then. So the client who I did the pipeline agreement for several years back, company landmen come out. Oh, hey, yeah, we want to do another pipeline agreement, and we want to do a roadway agreement that's going to take us to the surface site. We'll give you the same terms as before. No big deal. You don't need an attorney. Here you go. Here's the documents here to sign. Well, again, the meter, or well, it wasn't a meter site. The surface site, in my opinion, could have been negotiated, and I mean, I have this very strong opinion on this, could have been negotiated for additional money. Way more than what attorney fees would have cost, just on the surface site. Second, the surface site could have been limited and could have had additional addendum added terms to protect the landowner, so they wouldn't be dealing with what they're dealing with now, which is a surface site that's doubling in size, which already was probably 10 times bigger than what they thought it was going to be based upon the discussions with the landman. Then also, they have a roadway that they say vehicles are traveling on virtually every single day, this big roadway, and I've seen these pictures, where they were told that it was going to be like a trail where an ATV, somebody using an ATV, would come about once or twice a year to go check on this small above ground facility. Well, now they have this extremely nice road. If it's a nice road, it's a very nice road. It's nicer than the road I grew up on by far, but a nice road, and it's very large, and it's traveled on every day, and it's going to this surface facility, which already was huge. Now it's doubling in size, and these people are very upset. But unfortunately, the documents they signed based upon the representation of the landman allow these things. So we're stuck. They're stuck. So it's a bad meeting. And I was like, I don't want to be, and I'm not, and I told you so person. The idea, though, is don't put yourself in that position. And these guys, I tell everyone, look, before you sign anything, give me a call, send it, we'll look at it and say, hey, maybe you need to talk about it, and here's why. Or, hey, maybe that's not a big deal. Here's what it is. I don't have any problem with that. This, and I don't want to use the word standard as in like, oh, okay, yeah, that's standard. Go ahead and sign it. But it's nothing that's out of the ordinary or you're giving up any significant rights. But most documents, are problematic in some way. or at least understand, what are you signing? Is this document problematic in any ways? And if it is, and if there are problems with the document, how much or how big of problems are they for me? How much am I concerned about this? Because what may be a big problem for one person might not be that big of a problem for the next person. But you need to know what you're signing, what it allows or what it doesn't allow. And the whole idea, just think about this. And if you should see me, I'm holding my head right now. Think about this, where company says, well, we want to just put this small above ground facility on your property. And landowner says, okay, great. Well, how about we put that in writing? Well, we need to have our options. Well, in other words, that may be what you intend. First off, let's give them, again, the benefit of the doubt. That's what you intend to do. But you know that you may do much, much more, or you may do things differently. And it happens all the time. And that's giving them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe they're just misleading you and saying, hey, here's what we're intending to do. But then all of a sudden, a year later, you see something happen totally different. Look, I don't know. Maybe they're not. I don't know. But what I do know is if you don't limit them, if the contract does not specify what is allowed or what's not allowed, and you give this broad open contract, well, you have a really good chance of having a problem. And I know this because I deal with people and clients who have these problems often. I just was looking yesterday, 1935 easement. It's killing these landowners. They're going to put a pipeline, another natural gas pipeline, literally within, I'm going to be conservative and say like 25 feet of their house. And actually, I think it's about 15. But whether say it's 40, and I think really, again, it's 15. But you got to understand that if you don't have these limitations, things can happen in the future. We're dealing with 1950 pipeline easements all the time. We're dealing with 1935. I have 3 of them from 1935 sitting on my desk that are creating enormous problems for landowners, these particular landowners. So we need to make sure that people don't have these problems in the future. And you say, well, geez, 80, 90 years, whatever, who cares? I'm not going to be around. Well, that's just in this example. We have many other examples, like the person I was talking about with this surface site. Well, they signed like 2 years ago. And now what happens, because there was no limitation, boom, this thing has exploded. They're sending me these pictures. It's like, my heavens, it's enormous. And what do they see? They got this nice house on the hill that overlooks this industrial facility, which they were told was going to be a trail to get to the facility. And that in this facility was going to have just one little thing sticking above ground. So, the lady that was down at the office last week, she was almost in tears. I felt terrible. But you have to understand what you're dealing with. And maybe this will be my last time, maybe it won't, for today, you have to understand the landman works for the company. His job, her job, to get you to sign. I had somebody here in the office, a company representative said something to the effect of, oh yeah, landmen, they get a bad name, but all the ones I ever deal with are, are good guys. Well, yeah, you work for the company. What are you going to say? Oh, yeah, these guys are really bad guys. No, look, they have a job to do. Some do it more ethically than others. Let's say, hypothetically, they're all 100% ethical. They're 100% moral. Let's say that they're perfect human beings. Well, they have a job to do to get you to sign an agreement that's beneficial to their client or their employer. And what are they going to do? They're not going to go out and negotiate and work for you because you don't pay them. That's not their job. So if they're ethical and moral, and they're moral towards their company and their employer, well, they're going to try to get the best agreement they can for them and not help you. So please be careful. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm, here every Sunday from 8 to 9 on these stations. And I'm going to be right back after this break. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I talked last week about royalties quite a bit, and deductions. And I tried to explain something. I'm going to develop that a little bit more. So if it's repetitive, I apologize, but there will be some new things to this because I think it's really important. I've been doing a lot of face-to-face meetings with clients these last couple weeks, telephone conference calls with clients, going over their royalty checks, deductions, the settlement issues. And I'll say, I don't believe I've talked to anyone who's seriously considering opting out of the settlement. And what happens is anyone who may have that thought, look, get good information, because I'm telling you, you got to get good information. It's real easy to pump somebody up to say, oh, this is bad. Oh, you shouldn't do this, and this is bad. What's your plan? I'm very concerned that people are going to make bad decisions and it's going to turn around and bite them, and bad decisions for themselves. You need to make the right decision for yourself, but you got to be careful who you're listening to. You got to make sure you understand this. It's not just as simple as here's 3 sets of numbers. It's not that simple. There's case law. There's class issues with arbitration. There are so many legal issues surrounding this. And what if the class action settlement is approved and you don't participate, you opt out? My opinion is you better have a plan, because what are you going to do? Are you going to sue the company? Are you going to sue them individually? Are you going to try to join in with others? Well, you can't have another class on the same issue. You better have a plan, and you better be comfortable with who you're dealing with. And, look at these fee agreements. Look at a fee agreement. Look and see what it says. If things don't go good in the future, they don't go well in the future, and law firm says, you know what, this isn't going the way we thought, or this is getting too much of an obstacle. Hey, landowner, client, sorry, but we're going to have to withdraw as counsel. What are you going to do then? Do you have an agreement that says that they can't withdraw as your lawyer? What are you going to do then? You got to be careful. My point is, get good information. As I've said since August of 2010 when I started doing the radio show, and I will continue as long as I'm doing the radio show, saying every single person needs good information, credible quality from someone or a source that they trust, relevant to them, not your neighbor, not the local businessman, not the guy from the state, relevant to you. Do you have 5 acres? Do you have 50 acres? Do you have 100? Do you have 500? Do you have 5,000? All of these issues, or all of these variables, create new issues for you, and you need to understand these things. And don't do anything on a whim, or, hey, this person said that, or I heard this. There's so much. I've lived this for years now. You gotta, and I see these people just making these off the cuff statements. Please be careful. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to get into what, because you have to do it for you. What's right for you, but please find out what is right for you. Learn your options. Understand. The few people that I've talked to that had some reservations coming into speaking or having these meetings have said, wow, I didn't understand this, or I didn't understand that, or this is what I was told, or this is what I heard. You need good quality information for you as an individual. I read an article the other day about the commissioners, and at least one of them, in Bradford County. And, the best thing that I saw in the article was, hey, landowners, like, if you consult with an attorney. Now, look, if you're comfortable with it, you don't need to. You do what's right for you. But I'm telling you, consult with somebody who you believe in. If you're going to do it, do you have faith in? What is their motivation? Make sure you're getting good information. I am concerned that you can fast forward in a year or two, and there may be a lot of people, or some people, it depends on how people handle this, that say, wow, what do I do now? Maybe even 6 months from now. What do I do now? So you better have a plan. You better understand why you have that plan, and don't just say, well, I heard this, or I don't like this. Get a plan. If you're going, make sure you know what you're going to be doing, and don't do anything on a whim. Get good quality information. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm, here every Sunday from 8 to 9 a.m. I'm going to talk some more about deductions. And, like I was saying, I've been doing a lot of individual meetings recently, in-person, telephone conference calls, going over royalty checks, the impact of the settlement, why we're recommending the settlement to all of our clients, all of these different things. And what we're talking about, one of the things that comes up often, and I talked last week. So again, you can go and listen to the whole show or more detail last week about these deductions, transportation, volume. You can go pagasleaseattorney.com, pipelineattorney.com. Check out last week's show in full because I talked a lot about this, but I want to develop it a little more. And one of the things that we're seeing, and actually in May and June of 2015, the statements, not the production. Usually when you get paid your royalties, the production is for 3-4 months prior to that, depending on the company and where you are. But I'm talking about the statement date. So one of the things that we found, it wasn't very hard to find, but in May to June, so the royalty check that landowners got in May and then the one they got in June were significantly different. So what we were having, and I'll just generalize and say, maybe in May, the landowner says, hey, my deductions were 30% of what my royalties were. So they were okay with that. They think, okay, that's a reasonable amount. But fast forward 1 month in June, now my deductions were 70% of my royalties that I received. How could that be? The company's cheating me. They're gearing up. They know the settlement is going forward, so they're going to start trying to skim. Well, you look at it, and that's not actually what you see. And let me give you the example. Talked about this last week, but I want to even develop it some more and show you, how exaggerated this can be, and this is real. The number one thing is you got to look at what was the price of gas that was being obtained per unit, or MCF. What was the gas being sold at? You also need to look at the volume, how much gas was being transported. Those are enormous variables. And here's what I mean. Use a similar example of last week, and then I'm going to expand on it. So what we have is, I'm going to make a real easy generalization, making up numbers, but to illustrate the point. Okay, very simple. Going to illustrate the point using nice, round, easy numbers. So let's say that you have these gas contracts where a company is the gas company, and they're going to transport gas from the well site to the interstate pipeline where that gas is going to be sold in my example here. So we have the gas company. They have a contract with a pipeline company to move the gas from the well site to the interstate pipeline where they're going to sell it. In our case, that contract is going to be a volume-based contract, saying that per unit of gas that we're transporting, we're going to pay a certain price. This is going to be this is a simplified example, because these volume-based contracts, it could be, up to a certain volume, maybe you pay a certain amount per unit. After a certain volume, maybe it's a discounted or even higher rate. So there can be variables in these contracts, but we're going to make it simple. We're going to say we have a volume-based contract that's going to charge, the pipeline company is going to charge the gas company $1 per unit or per MCF of gas that they're going to transfer. Now, again, using this as an example for it's a high number, but using it as an example to really illustrate this point. So, gas company has to pay pipeline company $1 for every unit. I'm going to just keep using the term units. For every unit of gas that's going to be transported from the well site to the point of sale, which we're going to say is the interstate pipeline in this example. Again, I used this example last week. So, if it's $1 per unit, real simple, company transports 100 units. Gas company produces 100 units of gas from the well. Pipeline company moves it to the market at the interstate pipeline, 100 units, and the bill is $100, $1 for each unit. Well, in this month, in a given month, we're going to say that the gas was sold at the interstate pipeline for only $1.25. And that's realistic. I've seen these gas prices below $1 per unit. We see it, and the landowners getting royalties have seen it, unfortunately, too. So you transport 100 units, and you pay $100 in cost to the pipeline company. That's the fee, $1 per unit. And you sell your 100 units at $1.25 per unit. Well, you as a company just received $125 as proceeds from the sale of gas, $125, but you have to pay the pipeline company $100 because you transported 100 units. Now your your profit is $25. You received $125 in your sale. You had to pay the pipeline company, $100 to get it there, to get it to sale. You made $25. So in that case, the deductions of $100 out of $125 is 80%. 80%. So the landowner's understandably very upset. However, let's say that the next month, the same price, $100 for transportation of 100 units, but the gas was sold the next month at $2. So we got a $200 profit, 100 units sold at $2, 2 times 100, $200 in profit, minus the $100 in fees to get it to market. Well, now we're at a $100 profit. So $100 profit, $100 transportation fees. Well, there you go. Your fees out of $200, you paid $100, so you had 50%. So your deductions, if the gas was $2 per unit, would be 50%. We'll jump to say the company sold it at $4 a unit the next month. 100 units being transported, the same cost you have to pay the company to transport it, the pipeline company, $100. So you transported the 100 units, you owe them $100, but you're able to sell it this month at $4. So now 100 units times 4, $400, subtract $100 in cost to get it to the pipeline or interstate pipeline. Now you've made $300. Deductions, how does that work? Well, if you made $400 in your sale and you paid $100 in deductions, and you paid that for transportation costs to get it to the point of sale, well, in that case, 100 out of 400, that's only 25% of your royalty. So if you're only able to sell it at $1.25 a unit, and therefore you sell 100 units, you get $125. $125, and you got to give the pipeline company 100. The gas company makes $25 that month. They got killed. Next month, we'll say they sold it at $4 a unit. And so you got $400. You pay the pipeline company $100 because that's their fee. Now you as a company made $300. So you did considerably better, as does the landowner. I'm going to give you even a broader example. We're going to move these numbers out some to really show how these deductions can just be mammoth whenever we're talking about transporting large volumes with a very small profit margin. The profit margin is killing, and the price of gas is killing companies and landowners, and we're concerned about landowners killing these royalties because the deductions are eating away because they're not getting much money when they're selling the gas. I'm going to explain what I mean in more detail when I get back to this break. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I'll be right back. Welcome back to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. Again, I'm here every Sunday from 8 to 9 on these stations. Also, PAGasLeaseAttorney.com, PipelineAttorney.com. Go check out the websites. You can listen to today's show, hours upon other hours of other shows, and a lot of great information. Go check it out, read the articles, read the common mistakes, have sections about common landowner mistakes, frequently asked questions. Go learn, use it as a resource. Whether you need representation, you don't, go check it out. If you do need representation, you want to learn more, you can always contact the office, 570-307-0702. Again, it's 570-307-0702. Talking about natural gas prices, we're talking about volume-based contracts, meaning that a gas company pays a pipeline company a certain amount of money based upon how much gas that the pipeline company transports for the gas company. So the greater the volume being transported, the more cost that the gas company is going to have to pay the pipeline company. So I was using the examples of very simple math. I'm going to just reset the math. Very, very simple. We're saying that in a given month that the pipeline company had transported 100 units of gas every month, and it was $1 per unit of gas, and therefore they were paying $100 in deductions or fees to the pipeline company to transport the gas. So just real quick, what does that mean? Well, if you're only getting $1.25 when you sell the gas, but it costs you $1 in fees to get it to the point where you've sold it, you're only making 25 cents per unit. So as a landowner, when you see that the gas was sold at $1.25, and then you see all of these deductions, so you look at the gross and you say, well, geez, they sold the gas for $125, but my royalty check is only for $25. So how did that happen? Well, what happened is they were hardly able to get any money for the gas. They got a very low price. But the next month, we'll use our example, we'll sky it up a bit and say if the next month, if they were able to sell it at $4 a unit of gas, well, now you have a $400 gross royalty minus the $100 in cost, with a net royalty of $300 in this example. There, the landowner says, all right, well, royalties of $100 out of a $400 gross, the royalties then are, hey, that's 25%. I'm sorry, not royalties, but deductions. The deductions are then 25%. So they say, okay, that's a lot better. I can, I don't have as much problem with that. But next month, if it's sold at $1.25 again, well, now you're seeing that it was sold at $125, and after deductions of $100, you only get $25. So you can have the same exact, in that example, we have the same volume of gas, and you can have a difference of a $25 royalty check or a $300 royalty check, depending upon the price. Now, let me take this a step further, because these numbers can get really exaggerated, and we're just going to expand this. We're going to keep our same formula, but we're going to expand this. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark, Clark Law Firm, here every Sunday from 8 to 9 on these stations. So we're going to expand this. We're going to expand this calculation. So we're going to change the numbers a little bit. We're going to continue to say that per unit of gas that is being transported by the pipeline company, the gas company has to pay the pipeline company $1 per unit. So let's bump up the amount of gas that's being transferred. Now, again, we're still using just low numbers for ease of explanation, but we're going to bump it up. So $1 per unit, and we're going to say that the gas company transports this month 1,000 units. 1,000 units. So if you're charged $1 per unit and you transport 1,000 units, well, now that's going to be $1,000 in deductions. Let's say, in this example, that when it gets to the market where you're selling it at the interstate pipeline, that the gas company in that month can only sell it for $1.25. So now what do we have? We have 1,000 units being transported and sold at $1.25 per unit, which gives you then a gross sale proceeds of $1,250. 1,000 units sold at $1.25 is $1,250. Then you have to deduct the cost to get it there. The cost to get it there in our example was $1 per unit. So you have 1,000 units, and the cost is $1 per unit. You have $1,000 in deductions. So you take the gross sale proceeds, $1,250, minus $1,000 in deductions. So there, the landowner then sees, we'll say this is their royalty calculation. They see, hey, you sold this gas at $1,250. After you deducted $1,000 in deductions, I receive $250. $250. Well, look, you as a landowner, who's not going to be upset? You see your royalty check, you see, hey, the gross was $1,250, but the deductions were $1,000, and I only got $250. Well, again, remember that the gas price was only $1.25. Now, Here's an example to show how these numbers can really get wacky, but this is a good, real example here. So let's say that in a second scenario, we still maintain this constant $1 per unit of gas that's going to be transported. So you have $1 in deductions per unit, and now we're going to say, let's say it was really small, that they only transported 50 units at $1 per unit as a fee for transportation. So you transport 50 units, $1 a unit. Now your deductions in that month are only $50, but at the same time, you're only transporting 50 units. So when you sell your gas, you're only selling what you transported. You're selling 50 units. So let's have some fun. Let's say that this month that you transported 50 units, say you were able to get $5 per unit that month. Much higher gas price than the example we gave before when the company transported 1,000 units. So if you transport 50 units, you sell those 50 units of gas at $5 each, well, your total gross sale proceeds are $250. 50 units at $5 equals $250. Well, remember, we said, okay, well, 50 units, your deductions or transportation costs are $1 a unit. So $1 times 50 is $50 in deductions. Sold it for $250 minus 50 in deductions. You as a landowner then made $200 in that month. So think about it. $250 minus $50 in deductions, you made $200. Pretty happy about that. But the other scenario I just said earlier, well, what if you did 1,000 units at $1 and sold it at $1.25? Well, your profit that month as a landowner is only $250. So you transported way more gas. The company transported way more gas, sold at a much lower rate, and the royalties are very similar. So the landowner understandably is very upset. But the problem is you have to understand these formulas, and you have to understand that the price of gas is having a tremendous impact. And so for a landowner, if they're transporting large amounts of gas and selling at a low price, it's like a double whammy where you're seeing super high deductions and very little proceeds in your royalty check. If they transported low volume but sold at a higher price, well, now you're going to see a much bigger spread where your royalty payment relative to the deductions, your royalty payment is going to be much higher relative to the deductions. You have to understand these things. It's not just as simple as, oh, okay, well, they must be cheating me. What's going on? If you dig into these numbers, a lot of times, and look, I'm the last guy is going to defend a company, but I'm going to defend what's accurate. And you got to watch, because that very well can be the case. You got to look at that. You're listening to All Things Marcellus with me, Attorney Doug Clark of the Clark Law Firm. I will be back next week from 8 to 9 on these stations, as I always am. Have a great week, everyone.